Far west across the vast ocean lies the lone island called Zuxin. It is home to a vast number of apex species as well as few beastkin. There are only 3 beastkin races known to live here that takes up most of the land and sea. These 3 beastkin are the Alicats, the Selekia, and the Draken. The Alicats there are mainly white or black in colour and resemble that to white tigers and jaguars. This breed of Alicats are called Tylons, and they are only native to the Zuxin island. The second and third beastkin races that predominantly resides there are the serpent-like Draken breeds known as Lun, and the heavily built Selekia breeds called Zuxi. Though these 3 races are vastly different from each other, they coexist peacefully, forming a mutual bond that would persist throughout the history of Iron without the means of war. Because of their civil coexistences, the 3 Zuxia bestkin have built their own empire called the Kashmir Empire, with the Lun being the more directive race to rule, leaving the Talons and Zuxi as the minor races. The Talons and the Zuxi give the Lun their servitude by choice in exchange for retaining the peace of the land. Much like Eingald, Zuxin is rich in its biome and strong influence in magicka. This is because it is home to one of the 5 trees of magicka that holds the element O, which gives the land its constant moist atmosphere. The weather of the Zuxin island is almost always in a constant downpour, giving an abundance of life to the foliage that covers the island, creating large biology that adds to the island's brilliance in both looks and functionality. Though the island is known for its vivid-coloured species and fauna, it inhabits large life that are known to be vicious and dangerous to even the island dwellers there. With plants large enough to engulf kin whole to giant bugs that are said to carry them off to their nests of young, down to the apex predators that have grown to exceptional sizes, the lives of the Zuxia are at constant risk as they are forced to fight for survival every living day of their short lives. This volatile way of life has brought up generations of strong Zuxia, who as a result have become very proficient in their way of living on this dreadful island. The means of cultivating the land has become just as important as surviving it. With the aid of magicka introduced, the Zuxia have both learned to tame the large life forms to either work with them or saw them as prey. The bugs that once preyed upon them would now be hunted for their exoskeletons, which were used to craft armor and weapons. This means of hunting for armor did not exclude the large vertebrates, which were also hunted for their meat. The harsh living of the Zuxia has given them a unique way of fending for themselves against such giant predators. The weapons they forged out of their kills were relatively primeval, but effective in their use. Spears, swords, and bows were the extent of their tools of hunting. The swords were made of bone and commonly used to cut down the carnivorous plant life that sought to snack on them, while the spears were made of strong wood, with tips also made of bone that were carved into sharp points, sharp enough to pierce into the hides of large prey and sea creatures alike. The bows and arrows they used to shoot down large birds and bugs were made of the same material, with the string made out of apex intestines. Not all of these crafted weapons were used for the means of hunting large prey. In their spare time, the Zuxia began to train themselves in the art of combat, honing their skills on one another. With the use of swords came the skill of swordsmanship. This involved the knowledge and proper technique of how to use a sword effectively without cutting one's limb off. When sparring, bone swords would be replaced with wooden ones to prevent harm. When training with spears, the head of the pole would be removed and used as a long-ranged melee weapon meant to thrust or throw off balance with a powerful swing. The training of bows would be practiced with the use of targets made of straw in place of live ones. These targets would be either stationary or mobile, depending on the type of mark, with the stationary ones used for starter bowmen. The act of combat has been ingrained in the way of life for the Zuxia, who have not only learned to use the weapons they've fashioned, but have also learned the skill of unarmed combat, a concept exclusively practiced amongst the Zuxia as a nation. These customs of fighting unarmed would create different forms of fighting, complementary to the 3 different Zuxia that created them. Each of these fighting techniques holds their own forms of lessons and helps temper the mind, body, and spirit of the individual. One of these fighting techniques would be firstly introduced by the Lun called Tekka, martial arts, a fighting style that would strengthen one's physicality and use of ka. Another form of fighting is practiced by the Zuxin, known as Tai Chi, which uses slow and deliberate movement as a means of control over one's actions and mental thinking, something the Zuxi needed as they were known to be a highly aggressive breed. Taekwondo was thusly named by the Tylons who practice it. It is primarily used defensively and helps discipline the mind and body. These techniques of fighting have shaped the way of the Zuxia as a kin, with schools of learning founded by the masters who created them, helping with keeping the customs alive. These schools or dojos would be formed within the Kashmir Empire, open to all those looking to hone their fighting skills. Although agriculture is the world's most important profession and something most of the kin rely on, the Zuxia have made it a part of their daily lives and is something they thrive on. With the wild growth of a plant called Oryza sativa, the gathering of such plants had become simple for the Zuxia, who had started a systematic method of farming them. They would create trenches by the use of alu magica to push away the soft top soils of the N, creating multiple rows of these divots that can stretch more than several feet long. These shallow trenches can then be filled by the usual coming of rain, flooding the area in trapped alu. The ankle-high water-filled area can then be used to cultivate the wild plants which would now grow in abundance. Once ready, the plants are then harvested for their white grain known as rice. Because of the easy procure of the grain, rice has become a main source of tasty sustenance for the kin of Zuxin, with fish being a close preference. With their self-reliant way of living, the Zuxia have become a proud set of kin, setting them apart from the other nations. This does not mean that they were of a perfect nation, however, as they would remain a rather primitive set of kin for some time before the use of shipping and trading of goods were introduced. Because they are situated on an island far apart from the other continents, this made trading for and with them difficult. Without the means of shipping yet easily available to them, the Zuxia would be left out of what the rest of the world had to offer, like the goods of quality mineral materials that would be used for better housing and equipment, expansion of their learning of magica, and the fine use of regal clothing and jewelry. Something that would be later introduced by the Elkai.